Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us tonight for the launch of Henry Martin's The Dog Walker's Guide to God. My name is Will, and I'm representing Darton, Longman and Todd, the publisher of Henry's new book. Just one house rule to start with. Please, can you make sure your audio is muted at all times? Just using the Zoom controls, just so we don't get any kind of additional background noise and so on. That would be great. Still only one or two people in. The event will include a conversation between Henry and Reverend Andy Salmon, centering around the book, and there'll also be 3 pre-recorded videos, and you will also have the chance to participate in a Q&A with Henry using the chat function to post your questions at any time during the event. And if you look down the right hand side of your screen, you'll see that Andy is already posting in there. So if you've got any questions for Henry that occur as we go, you can put them in the chat down there. I should also mention that we're recording the event tonight, and I will do an edit which will eventually go on YouTube. So if you don't want to appear on that, I mean, obviously it's likely that you won't, but if you don't want to appear on that, it's a good idea to just turn your video function off as well, so you can just listen in. So I hope that's okay. So yeah, I've got a couple more people to let in, so I'm going to do that now. Here we go, in they come. We will begin. I've got a copy of the book here, The Dog Walker's Guide to God. It's I'll do a short intro. It's in hardback. It's beautifully illustrated by Henry himself as well, which is rather nice. Bear with me a moment. I've just got to admit a few more people. There we go. Yes, and yeah, Dog Walker's Guide to God. Here in beautiful hardback, illustrated throughout by Henry himself. I will try and show you some of the illustrations, but it may not come up on Zoom. You can see some of Henry's drawings there. For those of you, I mean, all of you will know, but just in case there are any of you who don't, Henry is an artist, writer, and spiritual director. And his new book contains 52 5-minute musings on companionship, divine and canine, to inspire dog walkers to ponder the mysteries of faith and the wonders of God. In each chapter, Henry offers a simple reflection and an illustration to be read just before setting out on your dog walk, and then indeed chewed over while you and your dog walk together. That's the sort of basic premise of the book. Universal themes that are covered in the book include the everyday, from house training, basic obedience, toys and instructions, the profound, crime, punishment, rejection, adoption, aging, death, and the afterlife. The theological, of course, salvation, scriptures and prayer, the psychological and the physiological differences between humans and dogs, and underlying all these, of course, love, human, divine, and canine. Indeed, the hope is that these reflections are just as valuable as resources for anyone who has a dog or indeed doesn't, for those that are housebound or indeed, as I say, don't have a dog. So yeah, out now in hardback, and without further ado, we will look at a sample chapter. It's the first pre-recorded video, so I'm just still letting a couple of people in, but we will go to that now. So I'm just going to share my screen with everybody, and we are going to have a look at a sample chapter from the book called How Many Times Do I Have to Tell You? And here we go.
How many times do I need to tell you? Out of all the instructions we give to our dog, heel seems to be our favourite. If we logged our every imperative and ranked them according to the number of times each is issued, heel would top our chart. On a bad day, it is issued at every 5th step, with me fearing that constant repetition is rendering it utterly meaningless. At the other end of the scale is the command, go. At feeding time, this needs saying only once. He expects it. He listens for it, giving unwavering eye contact. Sometimes he is so keen to obey, he tries to set off before the word is given. In between heel and go are instructions such as come here, sit, and lie down. These meet with varying levels of compliance, usually related to the proximity of treats. I wonder, as we walk with God each day, which commands we meet with eager anticipation and which we are most adept at ignoring. A couple of years ago, I compiled a list of all the imperatives issued by Jesus across all 4 Gospels. I expected love to be the most repeated, but it is not. If you accept take courage and do not fear as being, in essence, the same command, their variants come in second place. Let and take, again with variants, take note, take nothing, take up, are also popular. I counted only 3 times when Jesus told someone to sit. Leap appears just the once. None of this was very scientific. I made no reference to the original Greek and no allowance for repetitions of the same stories across different Gospels. I was simply seeking a rough overview. Jesus certainly got fed up with issuing the same instructions to his unreceptive disciples. At one point he said, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say?" He then proceeded to tell a story about wise and foolish builders, finishing with the warning of an impending crash for those who ignore his words. For the record, the instruction Jesus uses more than any other is go. Maybe we as disciples are less receptive to go than our dogs, and therefore need to be told more often. But love, despite being issued as an imperative only 8 times, still wins overall as the most important, since it is the end goal of all the others. Jesus summarizes, "I am giving you these commandments so that you may love one another." I issue instructions to my dog for a variety of reasons, a mixture of my love for him and my desire for an easy walk. Jesus tells us to do things less for his benefit and much more for ours, that we might love one another, build well together, and avoid painful crashes. Something to chew as your dog walks alongside you. Out of all God's instructions, to which do I respond the best? And which does God need to repeat over and over?
Okay, so there we have the first sample chapter from the book. How many times do I have to tell you? And Andy, I don't know whether we've got any questions so far.
We have not got any questions yet, Will, I've seen. I might ask Henry a question, and please do, people out there, put your questions or comments into the chat and we'll get Henry. I want to really put Henry on the rack. Come on, ask some questions. My question to you, Henry, is this book appropriate for a cat lover?
Oh, thank you, Andy. That's a lovely question. And I'll just waffle a bit while I think how to say no nicely. I don't know. Andy, you're a cat lover.
We have a cat.
Well, there we go. It might encourage a cat lover to expand their pet repertoire, and that would be very good for them. So very appropriate for them. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, maybe
cats are very different from dogs.
They are very different. Do you think that we could? Do you think that another book could be written on a reflecting on what we can learn from cats about God?
I've been talking to my friend John Hobson about this and decided that he needs to write that book, not me. He's definitely a cat person.
Okay.
Um,
Yep. So there's comments there about walking our cats on leads, but Chris has asked a question there. What's the most profound lesson your dog has ever taught you?
oh my gosh. I think, well, this dog in particular, Chris, or dogs in general. I think dogs in general, it's just simply the love that they keep on renewing and keep on giving, and that simply reminds me that love is something that is at its best unconditional and renewed every day. No matter how grumpy I am, my dog is always pleased to see me. And my previous dog, whenever I came back to the vicarage after a difficult day, he would always lift my spirit. I made his day by walking in through the door, and I think that purity of love is an amazingly profound thing. I don't think you can get more profound than love, can you?
Sounds good to me. There's another question here from Alice. What inspired you to write the book?
I was encouraged to keep a spiritual journal. I was actually doing my spiritual director's course, and I can see some friends from the course on the Zoom. It's lovely to see you. And I realized all my jottings in my spiritual journal involved dog walks, and I just thought, oh, well, let's just carry on with writing these. So I'm afraid I abandoned the spiritual journal. I didn't tell my tutors that; none of them would come. But I abandoned the journal and wrote the book instead. Great,
yeah, very sensible, and we get to benefit from that. I'm going to hand back to, well, do keep putting questions in the chat. I'm pointing at the chat, but I'm probably mirrored, aren't I? Is it down there? Anyway, do put questions in the chat, and we'll come back to those questions. But first, we're going to watch a video clip of Margaret interviewing Henry.
Is Margaret here somewhere?
Huh?
Is Margaret here?
Oh, she is.
Yes, I can see her. She's waving.
There, yes. And Margaret is a good friend of mine, because she many years ago lent us somebody from her congregation who became a great friend. So that's good. But Margaret has for many years is retired now, but was for many years a vicar in Northampton, and Henry and Margaret knew each other at college, I believe. So we're going to hear from Margaret and Henry now.
Okay, here we go. Let me just share my screen again. Okay.
I'm Margaret, and I met Henry 30 years ago this week at Theological College. Since then, I've been a parish priest for all of my ordained ministry, and I'm now retired. I live in Northamptonshire with a friend and a dog, and in France, in a beautiful setting apart from tractors going by every 2 minutes. So, A Dog Walker's Guide to God. Is this a book about dogs? About walking with dogs? About God? What's it about?
But it's a book for people who have a curiosity about God and somehow don't feel complete without a dog. Now, I think you're one of those.
I am one of those. I think I would like to say I had a bit more than a curiosity about God, and I'm besotted of my dog. The right answer would be that I'm besotted with God, but that doesn't always work like that. So is that going to help me?
I think this book's going to help you.
That's going to help me.
Yeah,
so
I could have actually written this book for you, Margaret.
Does it say to Margaret on the front?
No,
No,
no. But
but he could do.
when you read it, you can think, oh,
Oh, bless, he's written this for me. For those days when, and I'm not alone, those days when you kind of think, where is God in the middle of all this?
we can understand the kind of love God might have for us by looking at the kind of love we have for our dogs.
There's not a lot about dogs in the Bible.
There really isn't, and I have a bit of a problem with that. The Bible writers didn't seem to like dogs very much. They didn't get the kind of relationships we have now with our dogs. In the Apocrypha, there's the angel Raphael, who has a dog purely as a companion in the book of Tobit.
I didn't know that about Raphael with the dog. Oh, he did. Does it have a name?
Fido.
I'm sure it wasn't Fido. Does that say something then? Because having dogs as pets, companions, is very much a first world.
Well, in the Bible, we do have stories about people having pets. If we just take out the word lamb or sheep and a lot of these cases and just replace it with dog. The Lord is my owner, I shall not want. He leads me to green pastures and beside still waters. That's a dog walk.
It is. It is exactly a dog walk. So what will your book teach us about God?
About how God as creator is perhaps a bit bigger than I thought, because God is the creator of lots of creatures that have powers that humans don't have, and dogs certainly have powers that we don't have.
Such as?
Huge, wonderful sense of smell. So our sense of smell, if you think about a postage stamp on a piece of A4 paper, our sense of smell would be the postage stamp. The dogs would be the A4 piece of paper. They perceive the world very differently from us. Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg says that they excel us in joie de vivre. Their ability just to be present, to enjoy life, to get on with the joy of living. Whereas humans, sometimes we have ways of sabotaging that I don't think dogs do.
And the Psalms are full of that joie de vivre. I mean, they're full of suffering and whatever. But actually, I've not thought of it like that. That joie de vivre of a dog being reflected through scripture.
Yes.
So it would be worth buying your book for that alone.
Oh yeah. The inner child is very present in the dog book, because dogs, you can't be too snooty and pious when you've got dogs around, because they're going to do something. You know, the bishop comes for tea and your dog's going to scoot its bottom across the carpet because it's got a blockage, and here
and to bring the point,
here is one such.
I find I'm sometimes quite dependent on my dog's love. Do you think that might be the same for God?
I don't think God does need us, but God wants us. And it seems the primary reason God wants us is for companionship.
So maybe book 2 in this series would be, does God need us?
Oh no, book 2 is about having 2 dogs. That's all. If the publisher likes the idea. Your dogs. On the sofa, off the sofa.
Oh, on the sofa.
Allowed in the bed?
Not my bed.
Favourite book about dogs?
I don't have one.
Pure breeds or mongrels?
Mongrels.
Worst thing about having a dog?
Dog hair.
Best thing about having a dog?
Unconditional love.
Do you do Instagram?
No.
So there's no point asking you how many Instagram reels, dog reels you watch per day?
No.
You can ask me that.
How many Instagram reels do you watch a day?
I'm not telling you.
Okay, there we go. I'm just admitting a few more people, and I wonder, Andy, have you got any more questions?
Oh, we've got a few there. I just thought I ought to ask Margaret one of Henry's questions again. Margaret, you missed your opportunity. Have you got a favourite book about dogs?
It was right there in front of you, Margaret.
Margaret, it's right there in front of you. You're muted, Margaret, but I'm sure you're saying contrite things now, but you're muted. You're still muted, Margaret. I'll move on.
There we
Oh,
are. No, I want to know what I'm going to be paid to say this is my favourite book. I've not been paid for the interview yet. So
Unconditional love. That's what you get.
okay, so we've
and
got.
I love you too.
It looked like you were at you were staying in a very nice location there. Now
I was staying in a lovely.
yeah. Now I've got a comment from Nicola there that she thinks that dogs need regular walks. Does this equate to regular spiritual time too, Henry?
I think so, yes. Yeah. Hi, Nikki. Nice to see you. The dogs need morning and evening walks. And I imagine that someone a long time ago has taken their dogs for a walk and thought, oh, this is a good time for prayer. And they invented morning prayer and evening prayer. I think that's probably the order in which it came. Dog walks followed by prayer times, and then the combination of both.
Now we've got a great question from Hilary here. She's not terribly keen on dogs. Her sister always spoilt hers rotten, and it made life a misery for everyone else. What advice would you give her?
Just to interrupt, it was David who asked this question, not Hilary. She disowns it.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I think I was going to make a flippant point, but actually, a spoiled dog is not. Spoilt is means damaged, and so I'm not into spoiling our dogs. Indulge them, fuss them, love them, but dogs should be well mannered. So yeah, I'd advise her to get a trainer, because we've recently found a really excellent trainer for Hugo, and because he's a bit of a problem sometimes, quite a handful, as you know, David. You've met him. Although he's sleeping like a little angel by my feet at the moment, when he sees a hare or a deer, he just tries to rip my arm off. So dogs need training. They need looking after, like we do.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. And what else have we got? Bob is commenting that the unconditional love of the dog is the closest you can get to understand the love of God, all present and all encompassing. Although I think God is a bit different than a dog. The love is there, but I'm not sure I want to envisage God as a dog. It's not my image of God. Do you want to argue with that, Henry?
Not really, no. Bob, I'm seeing you tomorrow, I hope. Bob's part of a painting group we have here in France, so I look forward to chatting with you about that tomorrow. But thank you for the comment. Yes, yeah, I think the love is the same. The joie de vivre.
And Helen, I think that my dog has a lot to teach about go. There is no time when he doesn't love to go out. So.
But Helen, does he then sit by the door when he's got out and just want to come back in again? Because I write a little musing about this, how dogs just love sitting by a door, wanting to be on the other side of it. And I think sometimes we as humans can be a bit like that too. Never quite satisfied with where we are. My dog's very good at going out and then not closing the door after him, which is fine in the summer, but bad in winter. So he's waking.
Veronique says something slightly different, contradictory to that point, Henry, because she's saying that when she looks at dogs, she envies their ability to fully live in the present moment.
That's a very good point. It doesn't make my last point, but I do actually make that point also in the book. So I'm contradicting myself, but that's okay.
We can learn contradictory things from the same
We can. Yeah, I mean, dogs are wonderful at living in the moment. I think dogs have total experiences. They're either completely happy or completely desolate, or they're not good at having mixed emotions. And that's, I think they link us to ourselves when we were children. because I think as children we have much more complete emotions, or total emotions. We don't see things so in such a nuanced way as we do when we're older. Christmas Eve isn't as much fun for us now as it was when we were 4 years old. But I think a dog is perpetually a child at Christmas, on Christmas Eve, when it's happy. And that's a wonderful thing to have around. Says he who doesn't have children.
Another one here is be still a good instruction dogs can model for us?
Oh, I've written about this. Who's a dog owner here? Put your hand up if you're. Give me a wave. All right. So when you trying to clip your lead on your dog, you get the lead off the hook. If the dog would just be still for 5 seconds, it would take you'd be out on the walk much more quickly. So being still would be really helpful for the dog at that point. But we wouldn't want them to be still and sober all the time. I like the madness. But I think with God, certainly we need times to be still so God can clip our lead on or swat away the wasp that we're panicking about.
Okay, so we've got Bob's got his hand up. We've got a couple more questions. Bob's got his hand up, but we've got another video clip to come in a sec. Bob, have you got your hand up because you want to ask a question? Because at the moment you've got your hand up, but you're muted.
It might be when I said, who's got a dog?
Oh, yes, it might be. I'm not getting anything from Bob at the moment. So let's go to the next clip, shall we? Which is another sample chapter 28.
Okay, here we go. Share screen.
Don't leave me this way. Freddie was a rescued dog who could not be left alone. His history more than explains his condition. His former owner had moved house, and for reasons unfathomable, had decided to leave Freddie behind, locked in an empty building without food. I am not sure how Freddie survived the days before he was found. I presume the toilet was still working, and he was able to drink from there. When the door was finally knocked down, he was in a pitiful state. He was dirty, starving, and distressed. These first two were quickly remedied, but the distress had caused lasting damage to his mind. After a while, his new owners went out for an evening, leaving him home alone for the first time. When they returned, they found the curtains in shreds and Freddie a quivering wreck. Nothing worked well in future attempts. They tried going out for short periods only. They left lights on and talk radio, happily chattering away. But Freddie could not cope. In the end, they made the decision to reorganize their lives so that Freddie was never left on his own again. And so it was for the rest of his life. Why do dogs get so anxious when left alone? One of the answers must date back to their days as part of a wolf pack. When separated from others, some primal instinct yells from within that they cannot survive on their own, and they become distressed. Once again, a dog's outward appearances are deceptive. Chihuahuas and Papillons may not look much like wolves, but much of their brains are still wolves' brains. Most dogs seem to manage this anxiety. They get upset as we leave them, but once they've gone, they settle to sleeping or rooting through the kitchen bin. Keeping more than one dog helps to reduce their isolation anxieties, but this is not always possible. As humans, we generally cope better than dogs with our own company, but not indefinitely. Solitary confinement can be a form of torture. We remain social animals. Like dogs, we are programmed to stay with our group. Gerard Hughes identifies, lurking behind our anxieties, our deepest fear, that of total rejection, which launches us into the abyss of self-rejection, into nothingness and meaninglessness. If this sounds overblown, we should remember that fearing abandonment is what kept our ancestors alive. We are not the descendants of those who wandered off alone. Their genes died with them. Gerard Hughes continues, proposing that facing this deepest fear is the route to discovering the truth about ourselves, our existence within relationships, and from there, a deeper encounter with God. Rejection is always hard. Reminding people of God's enduring love and digging out those Bible verses about God never leaving us might not be immediately comforting at the actual moment of breakup or in the minutes following a sacking, but ultimately that is where our consolation lies. God is the one who never dismisses us, never abandons nor forsakes us. This is why rejection by a church can be so serious. It can be hard for our minds to disentangle a welcoming God from a rejecting church, and poor treatment from the latter inevitably risks driving us from the former. And if there is heartache, there is also rejoicing. One of the greatest benefits of owning a dog is the welcome home, especially after a crappy day. And if these reunions are joyful, how much more so will that great reunion be when we finally reach our eternal home and see God face to face. Something to chew as your dog walks alongside you. How might God help me when facing feelings of rejection?
There we go. That was sample chapter, Don't Leave Me This Way.
Brilliant.
Andy, have we got any more questions? I'll have
We've
a look.
got some more questions. Maria's got a question. Do you want to come on? Do you want to say it yourself, Marie?
So, as you know, I'm new to being a vicar. I'm a curate, and I'm thinking about getting me a doggy assistant. In what ways might that make me a better minister, and in what ways might it make me a worse one?
I can't think it would make you a worse minister. A dog, if you've got your dog collar on and you've got someone trotting alongside you wearing a dog collar, you will have astonishing conversations with people. People who want to talk to you but don't know where to begin will have a very easy way in by talking to your dog. And you can take your dog, with permission, of course, to see people who are bereaved, who sometimes actually just being able to cuddle a dog and fuss a dog just unleashes something in them and helps them to particularly if they don't have anybody any other creature to touch, and they've lost having a person to hug. So taking a dog with you, Marie, is just the best thing to do. And I think you ought to go to your local shelter tomorrow and see what they've got, because there's a lovely dog waiting there for you. That's not a very balanced answer, really, is it?
It was a bit of a certain point of view, Henry, but yeah. But
it's
you
the
wouldn't have written
truth.
this book otherwise. But you see, Phil and Susanna, I don't know whether it's Phil or Susanna, have asked.
I think it's Phil. I think
for somebody who doesn't like dogs.
Charged.
Yeah. How would you suggest I could use this book if you don't like dogs?
Well, you've got friends who do, and you could buy it for them for Christmas.
Fair enough.
And the lessons about God. I mean, you like God, Phil, yeah? So
well, that's what I say. If there's anything I can do with this book, yeah, I mean, the insights in there sound good, but I just, am I going to find the lack of a dog constantly a problem in this book, or is there a genuine?
No, you'll love it. Buy yourself 5 copies, and by the 5th one you'll be. And if you wait for the next one might be the Dog Walker's Guide Volume 2, if I can persuade DLT.
And what a lovely comment from Margaret there about her dog being a fabulous pastor.
Yes.
So, that's the question I was waiting for, Ian. Do you want to ask it, Ian? Unmute yourself and ask it. And hello, Ian. Nice to see you.
Hello. It's good to see you too, and also to see Henry.
Hello.
Yeah, it's just, I suppose I'm a person who's moved away from a realist God. So I'm finding the theology, it's making me think a lot about, the theological aspects of the book. Can I link in with the book in that way? Anyway, I put, do you think there will be dogs in heaven?
Chapter 51. I've written my very best attempt to answer that. That's very near the ending, so I'm not going to spoil it. But obviously, my answer is I hope so. I really, really hope so. I can't imagine if heaven's a joyful place and it hasn't got dogs in it, then I've got a lot of very, very big questions.
Sure. Well, good. All good wishes with the book.
Oh, thank you. But steam on to chapter 51. It's actually, they're not sequential, so you can go straight there. But yes, I very, very much hope so. The Bible doesn't give me much hope for that, I'm afraid. But the Bible wasn't written by dog lovers.
So I think I'm missing it. We've done book launches. Did we do a book launch in person, Henry, once?
We did, the first one.
Yeah. And we got nibbles and drinks and everything. And this is a cheapskate way of doing a book launch, isn't it, really? Because I've not got any nibbles or drinks. But it is lovely to hear clips from the book, and it does sound intriguing. And even though I don't have a dog, I might even buy a copy myself. But we're not going to keep the Zoom meeting going too long, especially with when I look at what Jackie's screen is doing to us all. But sorry, Jackie. But it's we can only cope with so much Zoom. We've got a question from Neil, and then I think I'm going to bring Will in to tell us how you can get hold of a copy of the book. But from Neil, he's got he doesn't own a dog. Friend always used to say when he prayed, the dog would come and lie across his feet. Do you think that dogs and animals generally are sensitive to God's presence? Are dogs spiritual beings?
You want a long answer or the short one? The short answer is absolutely yes. So one of my favorite stories that I put in the book is from Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, who wrote How My Dog Made Me a Better Human Being. And so he's obviously a dog person too. He says on the days he can't pray, he just sits on the corner with his prayer shawl, and the dog joins him, and they just sit there under the shawl and hope that whatever thoughts the dog's having is better than his thoughts, and somehow they're praying together. There's on days he can't pray. I don't see why dogs shouldn't respond to their creator as well as humans. Differently, absolutely differently from humans, but why wouldn't they respond to their creator?
Okay, thank you. Any final questions from anybody before we hand over to Wheel for Wheel?
Oh, there was a question that just we missed about that Annalie asked about my most profound lesson with walking with Hugo is, grief, if I have to be this patient with Hugo, particularly when he was learning to walk, how patient does God have to be with me?
Yeah.
It's a lifelong learning process. It's discipleship isn't a simple pass test.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you to Marie for her comment there as well. And it's not a problem. It's not a problem really, Jackie. It's just slightly distracting, but it's fine.
It's fine. It looks like there's a disco going on in Champagne Mouton, which is where Jackie lives.
Right. So my cat in the corner has just started snoring. So he's obviously content. Will, do you want to tell us how we can get hold of this wonderful book?
I can. Well, thanks, Andy, very much. And thanks, Henry, for answering all those questions. And guys, thanks for joining us this evening. And thanks so much for all your questions. It's great to have so many. I'm holding up the cover again of The Dog Walker's Guide to God. 52 musings on companionship, divine and canine by, of course, Henry Martin. It's available, as I said earlier, in hardback, illustrated throughout. At least 52 illustrations in there, if not more. It's a beautiful book. I think it's a great gift book as well. And it is available, as I would say, from all good bookstores, by which I mean it's in Waterstones, it'll be in your local Christian bookstore, it'll be in Foyles, and so on and so forth. It's available online, of course, from all the usual places. And it's also available from our website, which is dltbooks.com. And if you own a Kindle or something like that, it's also available as an ebook as well. So you can pick it up on there too. Again, from various websites online and dltebooks.com as well. So that is where you can pick up a copy. And yeah, if you haven't already, we'd really urge you to buy one. It will make a great Christmas gift, and you'll be able to enjoy the fruits of Henry's spiritual wisdom, which lie therein. As I said earlier, it's for dog lovers, dog walkers, but also I think there's quite a lot in there for people that don't necessarily own a dog yet. Or indeed for people that are unable to get out and about, that may be housebound, for example, too. I think it's rich in all sorts of spiritual treasure, really. So yeah, that's where you can get a copy. Thanks once again, everybody, for coming. Andy, you might want to have the final word. I don't know.
Well, Anna-Lee has asked an important question. Is it on Audible?
I will come back to you on that, Anna-Lee. We have a small but sort of burgeoning ebook program, which is sort of, most of them are produced by myself. So Henry and I may talk about that offline later on, but we'll be able to do one, basically.
Can I just say a huge thank you to everyone? It is just completely overwhelming to see all your names and faces on the screen. It's just absolutely wonderful. Thank you all very, very much for turning up and supporting the book. It's really, really amazing. Thank you.
And thank you to Henry for writing it and so on. Let's all give him a wave or something.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's so good to see so many familiar faces, some of whom I see very regularly, and some of whom I haven't seen for a very long time in person. But it's lovely to see you all. Thank you for coming, and thank you, Henry.
And thank you for me too. So thanks, guys, and have a great evening. And I'm going to end the meeting now. So thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye now.